Hey everyone, so in this video we're just going to get an introduction to intervals. Intervals are just about describing the relationship between two different notes, or possibly two of the same note like here. So there's two parts to intervals. First, the easy part, which is all we're going to cover really today, which is size. The size is just how many letters you go through or how many lines and spaces you go through. In order to get from one note to the next. So if you have two of the same note, then you have, for instance, two people singing the same note or two different instruments playing the same note. They are at the interval of a unison or a prime. And if we're going to give it a number, we give it the number 1. A second just means we've gone from one letter up to the next letter or down to the next letter. So A to B or B to A is a second. And we can also count lines and spaces here. So total spaces and lines incorporated by all the notes, including where you start. So a lot of the time my students get confused and will just count 1 because you've only moved once to get from here up to here. But you have to remember to count the starting note when you do this. Size will be very easy, and we're going to talk about 8 different sizes, starting at unison or prime, a 1 essentially, and then seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and the octave, which is the 8th point. So 8 letters apart, which actually gets us back to the same letter again, just an octave away. So for instance, I can take this interval here of A to C, and I know that's a third because I have A, B, and C covered. Or if I want to count spaces and lines, I have 1 space, 1 line in between, and then a space up top. So that's a 3. So third is what that interval is called. And that is the size, a third. But we have more possibilities than just A to C with those two letters. We can have A to C sharp, for instance. And we can see on the piano here that that has spread out the two notes. And it's not going to sound the same either, right? So if I have a note from here to here, that is a third from A to C sharp. Now, if I clear it and go from A to C, like that, and play those, we can hear there's a difference. Those are still thirds, but there's a difference in the total number of keys in between those two notes. That's where quality comes in, and that gets a little bit more complicated. So we'll save that for a subsequent video. So again, for intervals, we have 2 key features, the size and the quality. The size is really easy. We just see how many letters are involved, and the quality is more complicated, and we'll get to that soon enough. Now there's 2 kinds of ways that we see intervals or encounter intervals. One is called a melodic interval. That is when one note comes after the other, right? So a melodic third is having a C sound and then having an E sound just afterwards. So the way the intervals or the distances between the notes work when you're, say, singing them or playing them on a violin or a cello or something. And then we have the 2 notes at once. Now that is called a harmonic third. So that is the 2 notes sounding simultaneously. Now to our ears, it might sound slightly different having one after another or having them at once. But in general, when we're classifying and discussing intervals, there is no difference between these 2. We're only discussing really the relationship between the 2 notes. And since the 2 notes have not changed between melodic and harmonic, then we're good. There's no real change. So they can come one after another, or they can come sort of stacked like this, sounding at the same time. Now when it comes to doing interval size, there's a couple ways that we can approach it. And I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's all about the number of letters involved or the number of lines and spaces. So we can either count letters maybe on our fingers. So if this is G, the next letter is A, the next letter is B, C, D. That's a total of 5 letters we've gone through in order to get from G to D. So we call the size of this interval a fifth. Now it might be easier to just count total lines and spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this note, this G starts on a line. Then we have to cross a space, a line, a space, and then arrive on a line to get to the next note. So that's a total of 5 lines and spaces. That also gives us the same result, which is a fifth, right? 5 notes apart makes the interval size a fifth. So the thing you have to remember when you're doing this is that you must include the note you start on. So make sure you don't start here and then move and count that as 1. So that happens all the time with my students. They'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, which is an understandable thing to do because it's 4 moves up those lines. But you must always count where you start and where you end. So make sure you count 1 as being the start point, then 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll give you the right thing. So let's just do a couple examples and then we'll call it a day for interval size. Here is an example. This is just the first example, not an example of an interval size of 1. So example 1 is these 2 notes. Now we can think of it as letters or we can think of it as total lines and spaces. Now hopefully you can do this on your own. We just go from G to A, that's 2 total letters, or we go 1 line, 1 space, so that's a total of 2 as well. So our answer should be a second. Let's try another. So G and A, and then 1, 2. You might consider pausing the video now and solving this one. And then here we go. We have a total of 4 letters, A, B, C, D, or a total of 4 spaces and lines. Space, line, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, here is another example. Total letters, let's see, A, B, C, D, E, F. If we count those on our fingers, maybe we get 6. It's probably easier to just start on this note and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's see what we get. And we indeed got a 6th. So 6 letters or 6 lines and spaces. Interval size of a 6th. This is, of course, a unison. Let's look at this one. Again, harder to count through the letters, but this one should be easy because we know that from one letter to the same letter again above or below is an octave, and that's exactly what we are going to get here. So F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F again, so must be an octave, but if we do the counting, we will also see that we get to 8. Number 6. Okay, maybe pause again, give this one a shot, pick your preferred method, and then let's see what we get. All right, so we have a total of 7 letters involved. So from here to here, we have the start letter, top letter, and all the letters in between, or we count lines and spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 1, 2, 3, or E, F, G. So that must be a third. And finally, a 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or E, F, G, A, B. And that's it for interval size. All right, see you in the next one.